if your property is similar to mine, where your dwelling or your house is far away from the concession road, and you're gonna have to pay for that labor and those materials and all of those permits, all the wonderful things that come with it, engineering, etc., you're probably better off putting in a solar system. And I think you will save money. Good morning again, my friends. It's early here. The lake is stunning this morning. It looks like we're gonna have another beautiful day. But geez, I've certainly not been a good steward this summer. This property's a mess. Grass is a little overgrown, as you can see. It's more than a foot in a lot of areas. I'm gonna have to cut it in different directions over and over, try to get it down, because we've got a lot of areas where it's been matted down from the tractor and other things that we've been working on, including the new pier on the side of my deck. I think Guy did a great job. I'm really grateful for his help. Looks like it's setting in really nice. Got the O-pipe reconnected. And he said we could probably put weight back on it and throw that 6x6 back on top and take that temporary structure out in about 4 or 5 days, but I think I'll leave it a week or longer. And then I'll come back with the tractor, we'll shovel this all in, get her all packed up again, and we'll be good for the winter time. I'm definitely feeling a little lazy today, but I gotta get it done. I know, it's green. I told you I was feeling lazy. We're heading back into the forest tomorrow and the day after, so I didn't really feel like taking the skidding winch off and the grapple off and loading up the rear mower and cutting the grass and putting it all back on again this afternoon. So I think the little John Deere is going to help me out a little bit today. I'm going to take my time. It's a beautiful day. I'm going to get the grass done. That's going to take a while to crisscross it to try to get this stuff down to a reasonable level before the winter. I've got to trim the shoreline, take care of a few other things around here, and then it's a maintenance day. I hope you good folks will stick around with me. Cheers. Hey, and while I have you good folks here hanging out with me, I wanted to talk about an issue which has kind of raised itself back up in the media again, and the industry is starting to grow again. And that's having a solar system or solar panels on your home. I just strongly recommend, if you live in Ontario or in Canada, I know we've got another federal grant, I think it is, that program that's come out now where you can get some money back if you install solar panels or a system on your home. But I wanted to be pretty clear, because I know a lot of you folks are seeing the same commercials I am, where companies are claiming that you're going to save a lot of money. You're not going to save any money. Hands down, there's only one scenario generally where you're going to save money. And that's my scenario here, which I'll talk about in a minute. But all these commercials you see where you get the guy's getting his $5,000 check back from the government for putting solar system on his house, or commercials where they're telling you how much money you're going to get back from your local utility here in Ontario or in Canada if you put solar panels on the top roof, or a ground mount in. If you're living in a reasonably densely populated area where you've got utility distribution, you have a local electricity company, and you put a solar system in on your home, you may reduce the amount of money you pay for electricity every month, and you may be in a position where you've got a net meter and you're giving some of that electricity back into the utility. But I assure you, the $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000 you're going to invest in capital into that system can't be overlooked. The fact that you might get $27 back this month on your bill is not going to go too far to paying off that initial capital investment on the system. And I'm just ballparking it because it all depends on how many panels you put in, if you're putting in storage in the basement, if you've got a standby or a backup generator installed, your inverter and the other equipment that has to run that system for you, all costs a lot of money. And I believe you need to consider all costs in when you consider going green or putting solar on your home. First of all, just for argument's sake, let's say it's going to cost you $30,000 to install a system. Well, assuming you have the $30,000 invested somewhere, you've now lost your return on that $30,000, right? Because you've had to pull it out of investments to pay for it. If you don't have the $30,000, that means you're borrowing it at, what are we at now, 6, 7, 8% interest rates right now? You have to include those costs. The other thing too is the solar system requires maintenance. It's not maintenance free. And I think just about any reputable reference you'll find on the internet or any type of reference material will tell you that, generally speaking, your solar panel will lose at least 1% of its capacity per year of its life. So you've got to remember that any type of capacity that you're going to generate in year 1, you're not going to generate in year 2 or year 3, etc. Another thing that people tend to overlook or are not aware of is that when somebody sizes your system, or one of these companies sells you a solar system, they're giving you what are 20-year weather averages. So they may say, for example, in my area here, they told me I had an average of 3.2 hours per day of sunshine, 365 days over the year. And that's, I'm sure, true. However, you don't get 3 hours a day to generate power. You're going to get summer days where there's going to be days that are not overcast, and you're getting clear blue skies like today, and you're getting sun hitting those panels, in my case, right around 11:30 in the morning. It's right due south, right down on my panels, and without fail, every year, it's around 11:30 a.m. that I get the most generation out of these panels, but it doesn't last long. As the sun continues to pass over, you start to lose generation off of the panels. And you don't get 3 hours a day some days in the wintertime. In fact, there are weeks, literally weeks, where we go in the middle of winter here where you get virtually no sunshine. And although you're still going to generate a little trickle of electricity even on an overcast day, it is a fraction of what the capacity of your panels are. But you still use power every day. And I believe what tends to push people into deciding to put in solar is they know they're getting money back. They think they're going to save a ton of power or a ton of charges on their electricity bill every month, and they believe that that $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000 investment is going to somehow pay off. So I may have fibbed to you folks a little bit way back. I told you that the Kubota B2601 was my very first tractor. This was actually my very first tractor, lawn tractor that is. I decided to get rid of it, and fortunately Husky Bob was looking for one at the time, because after I got my B2601, I just didn't want to have to maintain another engine and another piece of equipment. So I just thought it'd be a lot easier to get the rear mount mower for the tractor, which it has been. And that way I don't have to worry about yet another piece of equipment parked in my small little shed, or another oil change, or another set of greasings and that kind of thing. Bobby loves it. As you can see, it's well used. In my view, and in all the calculations I've done, you won't save money. That's a fallacy when you take all of your costs into consideration. However, if you're someone that's really environmentally focused and you want to be green and you want to spend the money for that reason, then absolutely put in a solar system or augment your distribution utility with solar or battery storage. But if you're doing it because somebody's convinced you you're going to save money, I'm just telling you it's not true. Guaranteed not true, at least not here in Ontario or in Canada. There is one scenario, however, which does make sense to put in a solar system, and that's the one I have here. You have a home or a dwelling that's far off the main concession or the main road. And how it works generally, and I believe this is the case pretty much anywhere, if your house is sitting on the road and you've got electricity distribution going by, as long as you're within so many feet of the road, you'll pay that $135 connection fee. They'll come hook up your hydro for you, and away you go every month. But if you're more than a certain number of feet away from that distribution cable, you pay all the labor and all the materials that it costs to bring those cables or those wires into your home. True, every dime. And at least up here, The utility is not going to install those poles or run those wires for you. You have to find a private contractor who's certified or approved by the utility to do all of that labor and to manage that connection or that build. Engineer it, buy the wire, put the poles in, or run the conduit underground, bring it up to the side of the house. There's a transformer that will probably have to go in, and definitely there's a cutoff switch on that nearest pole. All of those costs are yours, 100%, to get your electricity down from the utility. And then the utility may or may not take over, for lack of better words, ownership of that line that you just ran down through the forest. And more over the last few years, they told me they don't accept responsibility for it anymore, which means that when your power goes out, you don't know if it's out in the street or if it's through the forest, which you own. That means you're going to call the local utility. They're going to come, they're going to throw that switch on the pole, and if the problem is pointing towards your house, they're just going to tell you to go get your contractor to find the fault in the forest, fix it, and give him a shout when he's fixed it again. And you're paying, once again, all those costs. They're not borne by the utility. So, enter GP. I am 1.25 kilometers from the nearest concession road, right through the forest, down to my dwelling. The estimate for me to have poles and wires brought in from the street now is $135,000. That doesn't include any free electricity. That's just the cost to have somebody come in, engineer it, hang wires for over a mile or a kilometer, put the poles in, connect it, put demarcation in at the cottage, and then allow the utility to come in and connect to the ends. Then I start paying monthly for what is kind of a rural rate, they call it up here. It's a little higher, the cost of electricity, when you're this far out. And I, on top of that, have to pay to fix that cable for a kilometer anytime there's an outage. They don't come and fix it for free. So the option was connect to the utility and suffer all the same power outages almost weekly or bi-weekly throughout the winter, and at least once a month through the summer up here, because we've got a lot of distribution running through forests. Or spend $40,000 and put in a solar system. It was a no-brainer. That's why I have solar. That's why it makes sense. That's why I save money. I don't have a big system here, but I've also got a small little dwelling. I only have 8 panels on the roof, 4 on each side. And I've got a battery storage in the basement, as well as you can hear right now, the backup generator's running. The challenge when you put in a solar system, especially if you're off-grid, is, like I said, you may have a 20-year weather average of 3.2 hours of sunshine per day per year, but the sunshine doesn't show up on schedule every day. It shows up largely, of course, in the summer months, and in fact, you get too much sunshine. So once you've already filled the batteries and your load is served in the house, there's no more energy that can go anywhere, so it's lost. But in the winter months, when it's really cold, and now you're running a furnace, among other things, and there's no sunshine, you have no power unless you have a way to generate it with a generator, for example. Because once your batteries run out, the generator takes over. It takes it from there, fills the batteries, gives you power to continue on. And then once you get sun again, your panels will start to generate electricity. But the point is that every day you use electricity, but you don't generate every day. That's why it's important to make sure it's properly engineered and that you've calculated roughly what your demand load's going to be every day, or how many kilowatt hours a day you think you're going to drive or you're going to draw from your house. So that's why it's important to have it properly engineered and to make sure that you have enough capacity, whether it's in storage as well as panels on the roof, to satisfy whatever your average daily load is going to be. What is that demand load, or how many kilowatt hours per day roughly do you use kind of at peak in the wintertime versus in the summertime? And once you have a system put together based on that, not on an average of every day of sunshine, because that just doesn't make any sense at all, and it will never serve you properly. You've got to look at what your peak is in the summer, your peak in the winter, and you've got to determine or estimate how often during the winter will you go for a week without sunshine. Up here, it's common. January, February, until you get around the first to second week of February, you don't get a lot of sunshine. There's a long period of time where you go days at a time without a single stitch of sunlight. Well, I still use power every day. That means I gotta have enough storage, and I have to have enough solar panels and a backup generator to manage me through those periods because there's no sunshine. In the summertime, plenty of sun. Even if you go through a few days of overcast or rain, I still have enough left over to carry me through because I have a very small home here. It's only about 1,250 square feet. It's not big at all, and it's properly insulated, and quite honestly, I don't use a lot of power. Everything in that house, every light is LEDs. Even the porch lights are LEDs. My coach lights are LEDs. I have a high efficiency multi-stage furnace in the basement which runs off of propane, and I've got a fireplace. So I have a couple of options. I don't use a lot of power, but if I did, I'd have a lot more panels on the roof, and I'd have much more battery storage in the basement, and I'd still be saving money because it's still a lot cheaper than outlaying more than 6 figures and then having to pay every month to use the electricity when it actually works up here. One nice thing about being off-grid, you don't run out of power. When everybody else loses their power during the winter and all those homes across the lake go dark and there isn't a single light across the lake, I still have lights, I still have heat, I still have warmth and comfort for the family. I could still make dinner. I never run out of power. One other cost that you need to consider, if you're a homeowner like myself, you probably have a shingled roof, same as I do. Well, you know, every 12 to 15 years you have to replace those shingles, and it's costly enough as it is on its own. But now you're going to have to coordinate to get your solar company back to remove that solar array and all those mounting brackets and all the wiring so that you can get your roof company in, put the roof in, and then they have to remount that solar system back onto your roof. And they're not doing it for free. So it's a good idea that part of your discussion should be what or how much they charge in those types of scenarios. Because in theory, those panels should last at least 20 years or more, which means you're going to change that roof at least once. And hey folks, don't forget, we live in Canada. That means in the wintertime we get snow, and up here we get plenty of it. When it snows and you've got panels on your roof, you're not clearing them. I have a 16 or 20 foot roof rake that I try to use to clear them in the winter, but as quick as you clear them, it's going to snow again the next night. So that just simply means that for most of the winter, depending on where you live in Canada, those panels are going to be under snow, and it only takes about an inch or more, and they will stop generating power until such time as the weather warms up and that snow clears off the panels. Definitely something you need to calculate into whatever assessment they've provided you as to how much energy you're going to generate or offset during the year. It's a big consideration because I guarantee it's not in the calculation. Of course, alternatively, if you have the property and you're not surrounded by big 60, 70, 80 foot trees, you could put a ground mount in. Those are pretty easy to clear in the wintertime because you can reach up with that roof rake, get them off every day if you'd like. But again, you need to clear them every day or every time it snows. Another really important consideration, which is often overlooked, at least in the planning stages or when you're deciding that you want to purchase a solar system, is how your house is situated relative to the compass. If your house is like mine and it faces due south, and I've got a lot of roof area facing south, you're in a great position to use solar panels. Absolutely. Because up here, the most direct sunlight for me comes from the south. And in fact, my roof is 3 degrees off of due south, which apparently is perfect, which is great. What that means is, if I buy one solar panel, and let's assume, just for the sake of example, that that solar panel will generate 100 watts of power at its maximum capacity. What they're saying is, under pretty much ideal conditions where you have direct sun from the south hitting that panel at midday, which for me is around 11:30 in the morning, you will get 100 watts out of that panel for that period of time, which by the way is about 15 or 20 minutes. And as the sun starts to move, your panel starts to generate less, right? Because they're rated at peak or perfect capacity and performance. The sun doesn't sit due south all day long. It moves. And as it moves, your panel will generate less or more until it peaks right around the midday. However, If your house or your roof faces east or west, you've got a big problem, because you will never ever get direct sunlight on those panels. And you can again find all this reference. There's a lot of articles written by smart people that'll tell you that in even the best condition on a clear day, if your panels are on the east or the west side of your roof, the most you might get out of that panel for that peak few minutes of the day is 30% of its capacity. In other words, you spent the money to buy a 100-watt generating panel, and the most you'll ever see out of it on those few times per year, usually in the middle of the summer up here in Ontario, is 30 watts. Now you have a bigger problem, because you're paying for a lot of capacity you will never ever be able to utilize. And now you need, of course, 3 times as many panels. And of course, it probably goes without saying, but if the sun's coming from the south and your house faces north, you're going to generate even less capacity, because those panels on the surface of your roof are facing in the exact opposite direction you need them to. So hey, just to wrap this up, if you're interested in a solar system, I think it's a great way to generate. It feels great to be able to be self-generated and not have to rely on the local utility. Absolutely it does. And for some folks, the cost is worth that, to have that independence. If you're trying to do it to save money and you live with a house on a street served by a utility grid or distribution cables, I doubt very much you'll be able to put enough panels in, or the money that you invest into the solar system, you're most likely never going to get back out of it. But I can assure you, you won't save money. Not at all. And hey, I just want to be clear. If you're going to get 5 or 6 grand or more back from the government, if you've decided to purchase a solar system, then yes, technically you're saving money. The point I'm trying to make is you're not saving money overall. You're just getting a discount on the cost of the system. And I think it's important to keep that in mind as you work through all the calculations and the costs that you're going to incur to have a solar system on your premise or on your dwelling. Whoa, well, that definitely took a little bit longer than anticipated, but I knew it was going to be a long time. I had to keep crisscrossing different ways to try to get it cut down. Didn't take me long to remember one of the reasons why I bought the rear finish mower for the LX2610 and not a belly mower. No windrows. I mean, even when the grass is long, it shoots it in a wide pattern out the back. So it's just not quite the same. And hey, I don't want to forget to thank Husky Bob for the loaner of the S240. I kind of forgot how much fun it was to bomb around on this little guy. A little bit of a difference from driving the tractor, that's for sure. Fortunately, I still have a few hours left of sunlight. It's a gorgeous day, and I think I've earned maybe a beer or two. A little bit of relaxation on the dock. Thanks so much for sticking around with me today. I hope you enjoyed it. About the solar discussion, just so you folks know, I'm by no means an expert, but I just hope that I've provided some additional information for you folks considering it, to make sure that you're including a lot of those other costs that a lot of folks don't think about until after the money's spent. Have a great week with your families. Please be kind to one another. I'll see you again right here. I'm Gord Potter, and you've been watching GP Outdoors. Cheers.